Welcome to Based on a Book, the podcast where we will choose fictional worlds over reality every single time. I'm your host, Crystal, and there is no karaoke in the world that would inspire me to get in a helicopter.
I'm Keri, but you can call me Major Tom because another soundtrack just sent me to orbit.
And I'm Lindsey, and the only exercise I get is jumping to conclusions.
This week, we continue our adventure theme with The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, or should I say Lives, the short story by James Thurber, originally published in 1939, the 1947 movie starring Danny Kaye, and the 2013 movie starring and directed by Ben Stiller all tell the story of the mild-mannered title character, Walter Mitty, and his vivid escapist fantasies. Each of the movies are very different from the story and each other. So I kind of want to do something a little bit different, and rather than ask for your ratings on just the story, I kind of want your rating on like the overall experience of Walter Mitty, if that makes sense. Because I feel like combined, these make an excellent experience, but they're so different that you can't really rate one compared to the other and understand what you're getting at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and start with Lindsey this time. What'd you think?
Yay!
Okay, so let's just say, what did you think of the short story? It's only, 5 pages? It's very short.
The short story was okay. I didn't really feel a connection with the characters. It was just something I read and then didn't really think about again. But my rating for the overall experience is probably going to be 3 pocketas.
Okay. And Keri, what's yours?
I'd have to agree with Lindsey. The short story, didn't really have any major effect on me at all. It is so short and kind of doesn't have any type of major conclusion, in my opinion. And it's just kind of like a slice of life type of situation. And so, but my overall experience, reading the short story, watching the 2 movies, I would probably give it 4 longboards.
Okay. I think I am probably somewhere right in the middle for the overall experience. I agree, the short story I didn't really connect with, but we weren't really the target audience, so that makes sense. But the overall experience of Walter Mitty in general, I gave 3.5 unexpected adventures. And yeah, it was really interesting just to see the differences between the story versus the 2 movies. And the 2 movies, the original in 1947 was produced by Samuel Goldwyn Sr., the 2013 produced by Samuel Goldwyn Jr. So to even see the father and son and bring to life these completely different interpretations of the short story was really interesting to me. But do you ladies have any final thoughts before we jump into full spoilers and breakdown?
No, I
No?
say we go into all the spoilers.
Okay, listeners, this is your final warning. The rest of this episode will take you over stormy seas, across deserts, over mountains, and into dangerous missions with humbling consequences. Pack your bags, buckle your safety belts, as we discover the secret life of Walter Mitty. The story, the short, tiny little story, opens on a boat in a storm at sea, or in a car driving to the beauty parlor. We don't really know. Well, we find out.
Pay attention to the road.
Right? Walter Mitty is a very mild-mannered man who gets lost in his fantasies. He zones out, and the people in his life consistently are having to say, like, Walter, Mitty, like to get his attention and snap him back to reality. And the short story starts with us in one of his fantasies as he's supposed to be driving the car. And his wife snaps him out of it by saying, like, hey, pay attention. You're going so fast. I don't like it when you drive that fast. The short story was originally kind of targeted. James Thurber is kind of known for writing stories about what he, at the time was considered a typical mediocre man in a, I don't want to say humbling relationship with a woman, but a more domineering wife who finds his way constantly just getting through life by doing what his wife tells him. The man taking the back seat in the relationship. That's what a lot of James Thurber's short stories were written about. It was actually coined Thurber Man in people who like do reviews of his work. And Walter Mitty is the quintessential Thurber Man.
Mm-hmm.
We see him being consistently belittled by his wife, like, why are you always daydreaming? Get your head out of the clouds. And he consistently we see within his fantasies that he is dreaming and fantasizing of a more adventurous life, a more
Yeah.
exotic life.
Or like he's always very like heroic as
Right.
well.
So the first fantasy, he's piloting a naval vessel in a storm. And of course, the hero that comes to save the day and pilot them through. In the second fantasy, he's a surgeon performing some one-of-a-kind surgery. And we see a lot of James Thurber's love for wordplay and jargon come into the forefront, specifically in this story where he makes up these like medical words.
Mm-hmm.
Where he says some of the words are real medical terms, some are not, and they're said in nonsensical ways. So it was kind of like just interesting, me even thinking about like my own fantasies. I don't always know what I'm thinking about or how to explain it, but I'll just
Yeah.
make up some random words, and that kind of made me laugh. The third fantasy, he's an assassin testifying
I'm
at
just thinking
court.
of me after watching like 6 seasons of Grey's Anatomy and then like daydreaming of me being a
Exactly.
surgeon.
Exactly.
I'm like, and then hand me the scalpel, and then I'm gonna do the, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this.
Stat. Like just yelling stat all the time.
Don't touch me, I'm sterile.
Right.
Or Epi.
God. And that's kind of how these fantasies play out in his head, is you can tell that they are definitely more whimsical, right? They're more
Mhm.
heroic, and he's almost always the hero. Fantasy 4, he's an Air Force pilot volunteering for a suicide mission, and everybody's going, you can't come back from this, and he's like, someone has to do it.
Yeah.
He plays the hero. But in every single one of his fantasies, he's quickly brought back to reality by the people around him who are trying to get through their life. His wife telling him, don't forget to pick me up, or, pick up the dog food, and don't forget to get the boots. And, he's trying to remember, he gets to the shop that he's supposed to pick up his stuff from, and he can't remember what he was supposed to pick up. And he, sees a newspaper headline, and he slips into his fantasy. But through the whole, short story, he's constantly being told, like, you've got to quit fantasizing. You've got to come back to reality. Where do you go to? And this was an ongoing theme in a lot of James Thurber's short stories. We leave Walter Mitty at the end of our 5 pages, standing outside the drugstore waiting for his wife to grab something inside. And he slips into another fantasy where he's standing against a brick wall in front of a firing squad, inscrutable to the last. And
Mhm.
that's where the story ends. So really, these movies could go anywhere.
Yeah. It's one of those other scenarios where it's like just taking the concept
Mm-hmm.
of what the essence of what Walter Mitty is and throwing in their own storyline with it.
Pretty much. I think what I loved most about our podcast in general is that we have learned trying to find somewhat shorter stories to cover, because honestly, reading all of this takes up a ton of time. So short stories is a good thing. But the shorter the story, the longer the movies. And
Yes. But
both
you
of
know
these movies
what?
are right around that 2-hour mark, and it's intense.
I know. But you know what? Because I think of the Stephen King ones, like the Stephen
Mhm.
King novellas, it had an extremely long movie, and yet it was like a spot on adaptation.
Mhm.
Yes. And so
So that's
that's
like
another thing that
crazy.
just like thinking about even like the birds, the Daphne du Maurier, the birds, you know, we started with like I think it was like a 15 to 20 page story. It was pretty short.
Yeah.
And then the movie was, I mean, not incredibly accurate because we're set in two different places, but like the pace of the story
Yeah.
and a lot of the events of the story really line up. And then we have this one
Yeah.
where about the only thing that is similar is the fact that the character is named Walter Mitty and he has a lot of these daydreams.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
that's it. There he does have in the short story he's married and he's driving his wife kind of through town and through her errands and running errands on their like trip to town for the week.
Mhm.
In the 1947 movie, he is engaged, still living with his mother and working at a publishing company. In the short story, we don't, I mean, obviously he must have a job because they have enough money to have a car and do their shopping, but there's no
Mhm.
real indication of what he does for work.
Yeah, no.
The 1947 movie, he works for a publishing company that publishes like fantastic pulp magazines, right? These fantastic stories, murder stories and monster stories and vampires and so there's a lot of fantasy within his job to begin with, but even his boss is constantly henpecking him, telling him, you know, you need to get your head out of the clouds, you need to come back to reality, you need to, you know, be more a part of what's going on around you. The little synopsis that I wrote, I'm kind of proud of, so you're just gonna have to bear with me. Walter Mitty is henpecked by his mother, his boss, his fiance, his future mother-in-law, and a poodle. Barely getting through
Accurate.
life with his head in the clouds, things become even more complicated when he meets a mysterious woman, Rosalind. Rosalind enlists Mitty to help find some crown jewels hidden during World War II. His real life adventures become more and more unbelievable than even his fantasies were. And the protagonists, the people that are trying to, you know, find him and kill him to get these crown jewels, use that against him later on, trying to convince everyone that none of this even happened. Walter was just fantasizing all of it like he always does. This movie,
I need to know, what is the vibe? Like, how are we feeling about this movie?
I'm going to tell you, I probably would have loved this movie in 1947. I hate this movie now. I couldn't stand it.
Well, I was excited because it has
It has Danny Kaye in it.
Danny Kaye, yeah, Danny Kaye in it, and I love Danny Kaye. I
Most of our
love
listeners will know Danny Kaye from his role in White Christmas,
Yes, one of
which
my favorite Christmas movies, and
exactly.
Crystals.
It is I was excited to see Danny Kaye,
Mhm.
but the movie so James Thurber was still alive when this movie was written and produced, and he was contacted several times to help with the script, which he did, and then
He didn't like it.
Samuel Goldwyn Sr. would throw out all of James Thurber's notes and ended up writing a script that played to Danny Kaye's strengths, the
Yep.
singing and the
You could
dancing.
tell, and you could
You
tell.
could tell because all of these fantasies were musical numbers
I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's
and the
singing and
longest
dancing."
musical numbers ever.
The longest. Like,
So
okay, so
long,
first half, I was okay in the first half. Like, the first half was decent,
right?
okay? And then that musical number came on that was, like, in the middle.
Yeah, for
I
no
was like,
damn
"Oh
reason.
my god, it's still going."
It's
Like,
still going.
honestly, I, like, was, like, kinda zoning out for a second and
I
zoned back
totally
in.
zoned out.
Came
We
back.
we pulled a MIDI.
Yeah.
We all zoned
Really,
out.
we really did. We pulled a MIDI, and I came back to reality, and we're still singing.
It's
Yeah,
still going.
yeah.
The number is still active, and I needed to wrap it up. We need
So
to wrap it up.
I will say the 1947 movie does have a couple of elements in it that are closer to the story than the 2013 version. Within the story, James Thurber uses the phrase "tapakata, pakata, pakata, pakata" repeatedly to indicate motor sounds, the sounds of enemy fire, the sounds of the machines in the operating room. And we hear Danny Kaye say that within some of his fantasies.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a couple of the fantasies are similar to the fantasies from the short story. However, there are definitely extras.
The surgeon
The
fantasy
surgeon fantasy was
had
funny.
me crying laughing.
It was
Okay, when
funny.
he brought out the knitting needles,
Right?
that's like a dream like that you have where
Exactly.
you're like performing surgery and then also you bring out knitting needles to like stitch
Yep.
something together.
It was Danny Kaye is a comedian and a singer, and this movie was the perfect, I'm going to say quintessential again, and I keep saying it because it's a word that is used in the 2013 movie, but
Mhm.
Danny Kaye was perfect for this script. But this script was written for Danny Kaye, so that makes sense, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then randomly, so like we have Walter Mitty, he's engaged. He has these weird fantasies. His mom keeps telling him, "Get your head out of the clouds." He brings home a rake and she's like, "I told you to bring home a cake," you know, and he's engaged to Gertrude. There's like 4 subplots going on in this movie too.
Really is. Because I'm not even gonna lie, there was like I had to keep like rewinding
To
and
figure out what
playing
was
it
going on.
because I was like, did I like zone out or something and
No,
come back in? Because all of a sudden we're like it's like the Indiana Jones up in here and we're like running to get some gems. Like I don't understand what's going
seriously,
on.
there were I just don't wanna use the word because the word flags us for things on some programs, but there were German soldiers, former German soldiers
Mhm.
from World War II, the not good ones,
Mhm.
that were chasing like, even that showed up in this movie, but, I mean, it was right after World War II, so that kind of makes sense, but at the same time, we got that going on. Crown jewels from was it Norway, Denmark, something like that? The Dutch crown jewels, that's what it was.
Yeah.
We've got there's a suitor for his for Walter Mitty's fiance. There's some guy whose character's name I can't remember who's going after Gertrude on the side. We have the boss is trying to like his boss at the publishing company is trying to like get him to get some prints or whatever proofs off to be printed. So we got that going on.
They're
And
singing.
there's singing, there's dancing, there's a guy in a wheelchair who's faking it. Like it's just all kinds of weird, crazy, all
There
over
are
the place.
there are birds.
There were birds. There's a wedding that gets well, it's not a runaway groom.
Yep.
Like there's a random guy on a horse. And then at one point, the Rosalind character, she like sneaks in to Walter Mitty's mom's house.
Mhm.
And in order to like let him know she's there without waking anyone else up in the house, she decides to play the piano? What? I just it was
Because that's what you do when you're trying to make sure you don't wake anyone up when they're asleep.
right. It is one of those movies that I feel like was perfect if your only entertainment like at the time was going to a movie theater and you wanted to get your money's worth being there and you really wanted the
You wanted to
full.
watch 5 movies at once.
There's a poker game, it's a fantasy, but it's like there's all kinds of like a Southern Belle. He tries to like I don't know. Somebody loses the plantation in a poker. It's all crazy. And there's women. There's like a lingerie fashion show, like a corset fashion show.
Oh, yes.
I it this
He's just sitting there, like,
he's
watching it,
yeah.
like, trying not to be suspicious.
It is. I can't honestly. The more we talk about it, the more I think maybe that was a really good movie. Like, so I will probably be watching that again.
It is, like, the definition of, like, bonkers, like, it was literally bonkers.
I feel like it would have been way more fun if I wasn't sitting at home watching it alone at like 5 in the afternoon. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those that like it would be
Mhm.
more fun if you were watching it with other people, maybe a few glasses of wine and we could all
Yeah,
laugh about it, you
and you're
know?
all like, "What the hell is going on?"
Pretty much.
The author hated it so much, though, he offered the producer $10,000.
And he wrote a letter to Life magazine, an op-ed about how much he hated this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Which today, $10,000 today.
Get the numbers. Get the numbers.
$145,699.54.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It was not the best. But not the worst, apparently, now that I think on it. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. After talking about it, I might have to do a rewatch.
Right? So, now I want to talk about the 2013 movie because to me, I like this one way better.
Mm-hmm.
Way better.
This was my first time watching it. I've never seen it.
I watched it probably when it came out, like within 6 months of it coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been at least 10 years, and I didn't remember a chunk of it. I forgot how much I loved it, honestly.
Lindsey, have you seen it?
Mm-mm, no, it was my first time.
Really?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I thought you had already seen it before.
Well, I'm so glad I picked this then.
Yeah.
And legit, I had not read the story or seen the 1947 movie.
Yeah.
And so when we decided we were going to do Adventure Month, I was like, oh, I remember liking this movie, and he had an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea
Yeah,
that
it was
the short
perfect for the
story
theme.
it is perfect for the theme, but I had no idea that the short story was all about this dude and his like fantasy adventures. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, now we know.
Yeah.
The 2013 movie, again, we have Walter Mitty, who's pretty mild-mannered, chill dude. He does not live with his mother or his wife. In fact, Walter's single and on eHarmony. And that's how the movie opens. It
Oh my gosh. It
opens
was
with
so unexpected. I love it.
I kind of loved that first opening scene where he's on eHarmony. He wants to send a wink, but it's not working. So he first he's like, do I do it? Do I not do it? Do I do it? And he's just hovering over the button, because like as somebody who did online dating for a hot minute, like,
oh yeah,
that's initiating that first contact is the most nervous thing in the world. And he is wanting to wink at Cheryl, what was her name? Melhoff,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and who is played by Kristen Wiig. And like we find out that, so he calls eHarmony to say, like, I tried to do it and it wouldn't do it, so that I hit it 1,000 times. What's going on? And he calls eHarmony and a human answers the phone, which we all know is definitely a fantasy.
Yeah.
The human's name is Ted, played by Patton Oswalt, who I love.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of fun. And right away, I listened to the sound. I was like, wait, because I didn't remember this part of the plot at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to the voice and I was like, oh, I think I know who that is. So I like Googled it right away. Like, I was right.
Yeah. I went in blind again. Like, I didn't know, obviously the only person I really knew was Ben Stiller that was in it. And I didn't know any of the cast in it going into it. And every single person, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
I did the same thing.
You guys, we have Ben Stiller, Kristen Wiig, Shirley MacLaine, Adam Scott, Catherine Hahn, Patton Oswalt, and Sean Penn, and a handful of others. This was a packed cast.
Yeah.
It was
crazy.
It was pretty amazing. But he's trying to get a hold of eHarmony because he's trying to figure out if there's something wrong with his account. And Ted from eHarmony says, well, I noticed you haven't filled out very many of your sections. And this section is like, been there, done that. Tell us where you've been. He's like, well, I haven't really been anywhere. And he's like, well, tell us, have you done anything? He goes, not anything worth writing down. And of course, he has a few fantasies along the way. The first one is he's saving a dog from a burning building, which of course is not just any dog. It's Kristen Wiig's dog.
Mm-hmm. This was so funny because I was watching it with my family and nobody knew. And obviously I'd already watched the old movie and then I had already read the book, but no one with me knew how, I think only my sister knew how the movie was going to go. And when that whole like fantasy scene happened,
they didn't realize it was a fantasy scene yet.
They were like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is this movie? And I was cracking up.
That's
Because
hilarious.
it's so extra, like, it's literally like he's
And
jumping off a
it's very
building.
seamless the way we move from reality to his
Mhm.
fantasy. Like, if you didn't know it was gonna happen, it kinda takes you, and there were a couple of times when I was like, "Wait, oh, wait, this is a fantasy." I had to, like, remind, because 'cause he'll fantasize conversations too, just a regular conversation. You
Yeah.
know, he'll fantasize a witty comeback, or, like, making a graceful exit or whatever, when in reality, he's just
Going
your
off on
average Joe.
someone, going
Right?
off on his boss.
And so you kind of, part of you is like, "Wait, is this part real or is it not real?"
Mhm.
Some of the fantasies are huge and obviously freaking fantasies, like jumping into the burning building and coming out with a dog and being like, "By the way, I made him a prosthetic on my way down the stairs." Like,
Like Benjamin Button.
Oh my god.
the Benjamin Button fantasy was so bad.
Oh my gosh. When I saw that, I was screaming because if anyone has listened to our bonus episode, we were talking about how we cover the Curious Case of Benjamin Button as a practice episode between the three of us. And I was thinking about that when we read
Yep.
that short story. I was
Yep.
like, "Oh my god,
I was
it's
like,
full
"No, not
circle.
Benjamin Button. Like, don't ruin it for me, guys."
This full circle moment."
It really was. But we find out that, Ben Stiller works, or Walter Mitty works at Life magazine, which has been bought out and is being, what's the word? Reorganized is
Mhm.
the word they like to use in corporate speak. Basically, they're going to fire everybody and everybody knows it.
Yeah.
And it turns into this, like, who's going to stay and who's not going to stay. And that's when Adam Scott comes in, Ted, who is like the director of reorganization, whatever.
His beard is crazy.
His beard is crazy. It is such a weird beard. So bad. But, he comes in and he notices that Walter Mitty is zoning out, basically.
Mhm.
And he starts instantly kind of makes Walter the target, right?
Mhm.
Of all of his pettiness, I guess. Um, we find out that Walter is in charge of the negatives that the field photographers send. And one of the field photographers sends a package saying, number 25 is the quintessential quintessence of my
Mhm.
career, or something like that. Like, basically saying that the 25th one is the perfect one. This is the one. And as they're pulling the negatives out and putting them in the little book sheet thing, they notice that 25 is missing. Also, Sean O'Connell, the field photographer, has sent Walter a little gift saying that, basically, like, "I know that we're probably not going to work together after this, and I want, I appreciate you having taken care of my life's work as well as you have." And it's a wallet with the motto of Life magazine in there, which, for whatever dumb reason, I did not put in my notes today, but it's beautiful if you guys want to look it up. So he has this wallet he puts kind of in his pocket, as the dude saying, like, "Hey, negative 25 isn't here." And he's like, "Wait, what?" And that's when Adam Scott comes downstairs and he's all like, "Hey, dude, we just got a telegram from Sean O'Connell in the field, and he says 25 is the one that we should look at for the cover.
Where's
So
my
I want to see it,"
prescription?
pretty much. And of course, this is when Walter realizes he's screwed. And we end up kind of following him along on his quest to find this negative, which leads him into talking to Kristen Wiig and, enlisting her help, because she, I guess, is in charge of field assets. So basically keeps track of where the photographers are going to be and what assignment she wants to send them on and where to send their paychecks and stuff. And she kind of helps him try to figure out where he is. And they use some of the photographs that were the rest on that film strip to try to figure out where he could be. This could have been this would have fit well in our mysteries theme month, because it was solving the little clues and the
Mhm.
breadcrumbs and looking at these photographs. It really made me happy. But we also find out the subplot here is that Walter Mitty's mom is moving into some sort of like retirement apartments type thing. And they're trying to save her piano. that was a gift from their dad, who has already passed. Walter's mom is played by Shirley MacLaine, who, this is a very small role, but it's a really impactful role.
Mhm.
You know, she doesn't say a ton to Walter. It's more just kind of background talking. And of course, Walter's sister is played by Catherine Hahn, and she's an actress, but like community theater type, smaller church theater type actress. And Shirley MacLaine doesn't in any way whatsoever downplay her actress child or her super professional son who with his head in the clouds. She obviously is like this nurturing mom, and now Walter's kind of taken on this whole like, I've got to make sure that mom gets her piano and mom gets moved in safely, and it's obviously a stress in his life. We kind of see him repeatedly going back to his checkbook and putting in all of the the bills that he's paid and moving the piano and storing the piano, and now they've got to move mom into a different apartment because the piano wouldn't fit in the first one.
Mhm.
And so we kind of see these very mundane aspects to Walter Mitty's life to kind of counterpoint these real crazy fantasies he's having, you know?
Yeah.
Like at one point he's in the park with Kristen Wiig, who had to go grab her son from something, and he's literally fantasizing his life with her, but as Benjamin Button.
Yeah. What I think is interesting with the movie, this movie,
Mhm.
is that all the fantasies are involving this relationship
Yes.
with this person. It's not like these heroic acts of like doing like these random things that you fantasize about. It's all revolving around this potential like love interest.
Right.
Minus the Stretch Armstrong.
Minus the
Yes.
strap.
Yeah. Oh,
Pretty much.
also the boss one. The boss where telling off your boss and
Telling
then
off your
like
boss. That actually occurs like almost immediately after this Benjamin Button scene is when
yeah.
he ends up in the elevator with Adam Scott, and somehow like they it's like this epic superhero battle between
Yeah.
Ben Stiller and Adam Scott that starts in an
Yep.
elevator that I just you know what, this is kind of what I live for. Like
I
these
know.
moments. Like it was at first I was like, "Oh, he just hit Adam Scott." And then I was like, "Oh, he hit him back." Like it
Yeah.
was now they're flying. Like
I just kept
Now they're
thinking
running the streets.
I just kept thinking, I was like, man, Adam Scott, he's such a jerk in this movie that Ben Stiller then put him in Severance, and now he's torturing him in Severance.
there you go. That's what you get when you're mean to Walter Mitty. I'm just saying.
Yep.
So Walter kind of decides that at this point, the only way he's going to end up getting this negative is not by tracking down Sean O'Connell, the photographer, by calling him. He's going to have to literally go chase him down. So
Mhm.
this is where, instead of constantly fantasizing about these big grand adventures, he s- goes on one.
And
He
there's this, like, beautiful moment, which is, like, very famous in the movie where he's leaving the building. Because I don't know if he gets does he get fired at this point, though?
no, not
No.
yet.
Okay, so he's leaving the building, and he's walking across, like, all, like, the life photos and stuff,
Mhm.
and it's like he's in front of the one of himself
Mhm.
as an
Yep.
astronaut. And then there's, like I wanna talk about, like, the aesthetic, like, the cinematography of it, and all like, the colors used in the movie is literally perfection of, like, the
Mhm.
blues and the reds are
Yes.
so beautiful.
Like,
I
offset by
could
that
not
gray silver going
Yeah,
on, like,
I could not get over it. Plus the soundtrack, because you know I love a soundtrack.
the soundtrack is amazing.
The soundtrack plus the color scheme that they're putting with I'm like, "I see you, I know what's going on, and I'm loving it.
And
I'm
some of
literally
these, like,
loving it."
beautiful subplots too, the storytelling is there.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
went down an incredible rabbit hole on Life magazine over the last few days,
Mhm.
Like, I was looking up, like, when did they last stop publishing weekly? When did they stop publishing monthly? When did they stop doing special editions? When did they go to fully online? Like, and all that, because it's always been a photojournalism magazine. And so it was a visual medium, right? It was all about the visuals. So for this movie to have genuinely embraced that visual and make
Yeah.
you want to look, make you not want to just look at the surface, but genuinely watch and pay attention. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, I loved it.
So at this point, one of the photographs points Walter to Greenland. So he hops a flight to Greenland and he goes to track down where this ship in the photograph was last docked and where he thinks O'Connell got mail. And it's like this random bar in Greenland, pub type thing in this marina that is populated by like a whopping 8 people. And some dude is singing karaoke, really drunk karaoke about losing his girl. And at one point, Walter realizes, well, they get in kind of a tussle because the dude wants him to sing with him. And, Walter Mitty's not the karaoke type. So he's like, no, I don't want to sing. I'm here on business. I'm busy. I don't want to sing. And then he realizes as they're getting in this tussle that, like, oh, I recognize that dude's thumb. I saw a picture of it. So he's like, wait, Sean. And so he starts talking to this dude and he's like, yeah, we fly their mail to the ship sometimes. It's right out there and I have to get on there. But dude's drunk. He's trash drunk. And Walter Mitty's like, yeah, I'm not going with you. Which is the right answer, no matter how adventurous you are. But then he fantasizes Kristen Wiig singing Ground Control to Major Tom. And like, this is dedicated to Walter Mitty style. You know what I mean. And she starts singing Ground Control to Major Tom, and she had told him previously that the song was about courage and bravery. And so this like inspires Walter Mitty to like jump into the already lifting off helicopter. Like, how do you go from mild-mannered?
I'm sorry, but I love this part.
This scene was moving, but I'm over here like, not me.
Couldn't be me. Love it for
Nope.
you, but couldn't be me.
Nope. Go
Also,
get your man, Walter. But
yeah, it's
I'll
like
be over here.
inspiring you to be adventurous for the guy who's literally so intoxicated can't even see straight driving a helicopter.
Yeah. No, thank you.
But I mean, you do you, boo. But
right,
I'm gonna watch you from over here on my couch and cheer you on.
Exactly. So they're in the helicopter flying to go drop off the mail at the ship.
I'm sorry, this part.
And the drunk pilot is like, okay, Walter's like, okay, where do we land on this ship? He's looking down. It's not a really big ship. And the pilot says, oh, I usually just toss out the mail. You're going to have to jump. And he's like, what? Where? He's like, just jump into the boat. And there's like a little lifeboat like coming out to like catch whatever gets thrown out. And he's like, just jump towards the boat. Just jump towards the boat. Jumps the wrong way towards the big boat instead of towards the lifeboat. He just sploops into the North Sea. Like, no big deal. I think my favorite part is when there's like a fin in the water and the captain of the boat is like, we're out here studying porpoises. It's a porpoise. And he's like, I don't think it's a porpoise. And the captain's like, it's a porpoise. It's a porpoise. And then, of course, we see like the big Jaws mouth. And the captain's like, definitely not a porpoise.
I just was like crying because he had like their mail, which had the radio parts, and whenever he gets on the ship, he's like, "So, can we contact Sean by radio?" Yeah. And they're like, "You had the radio,
right?
And it's now in the ocean."
There are so many parts of this movie that are absolutely hilarious, but it's really such a touching movie.
Yeah,
that it's a little contradictory in that it's not a comedy.
Yeah,
but Adam Scott and Ben Stiller and Kristen Wiig, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's not a comedy. Like,
I just keep seeing him. He's there. You're like, you gotta jump in the boat, and literally,
just like whoosh,
the boat was literally going on those waves like insanely. Like no one's landing in that boat.
Listen, I've been on North Sea TikTok. That wasn't that bad, but it was bad. So he gets to the boat. The boat says, no, Sean was just here, but we dropped him off in Iceland a few hours ago. And he was like, well, are we going back? And they're like, well, yeah, we'll be there in the morning. So they get to Iceland. Ben Stiller's like, okay, where do I find him? And like, he's got this piece of paper that Sean had written some notes on that indicates he's going to this volcano in Iceland. And so he's like, okay, how do I get to the volcano? And dude's like, ride the bike 15 miles that way. And so he runs for the bike. He starts riding. And it is some of the most, again, the cinematography, it like
Insane.
beautiful
Amazing.
vistas. Like I want to go to Iceland now. I don't know
Yeah.
about y'all, but I want to go to Iceland now.
Mm-hmm.
So he's riding his bike through these beautiful vistas.
I think that's the part when he also says, "Stay gold, pony boy."
Yeah, the guy
Mhm.
on the boat.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious. The guys on the boat, like one guy speaks English kind of well, but he keeps just like randomly saying like English phrases that he thinks might sound cool. Like he's like, I'll see you on Sesame Street. And like just random stuff he's probably heard on television is very funny.
Well, it's so funny because Catherine Hahn says "Stay gold, pony boy" in Step Brothers. And
Yep.
she's married to Adam Scott in that movie.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Yes.
So he rides to where he thinks the dude's gonna be, crashes his bike, ends up like trading his Stretch Armstrong for a longboard, and which that's a bad trade. Those
Yeah,
kids
that's a
in
terrible
Iceland, that's a
trade.
terrible trade. But he gets the longboard and he rides the longboard to the volcano. I just listen. This
I
was
like
again
that
a
part.
beautiful moment. But when you don't see any other people and everybody's heading the other direction, maybe don't go towards the volcano.
Yeah,
Just a thought.
true.
Anyways, turns out the volcano is about to actively erupt, and the dude who like told him where Sean would be like comes flying in his car to pick him up and be like, no, dude, we're evacuating. There's an
Mhm.
eruption, which he first called an erection, and that was hilarious.
Mhm. Also, eHarmony guy
E
is
Harvey guy keeps calling.
constantly calling saying that about updating his profile
Yeah,
because they
what are
said,
you up
like
to now?
yeah,
I
because originally they were like, "You need to update your profile because it's like there's a blank in certain spots, especially like places that you need to fill in of places that you've been and things that you've done." And he's like, "I haven't done anything." And or I haven't been anywhere. And now he's like, "Well, I just
like I just punched a shark or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
now I
Uh,
gotta add that to my profile." He's like,
and
"Now
Ted
you're
from
getting so many
eHarmony
likes or so many or
winks,
yeah,
winks.
winks."
It was really freaking funny. But now he decides that like, hey, I can't find Sean. I'm just gonna have to go home. Like this is all I got. And he goes home, and of course, Adam Scott is all like, I told you I wanted that picture the next time I saw you. I see you and you don't have a picture, you're freaking fired. And so he leaves and he goes running back to his mom's house, who now has this new place, and the piano's there. And he like empties out his pockets. He's kind of feeling like a failure. He just spent all this money on this trip to Greenland and Iceland and didn't even get what he went for. And he's kind of like, he throws the wallet in the trash can, like, forget this guy. And he goes and sits down on the couch and he realizes that one of the photos from the negative film strip was of his mother's freaking piano, because there's a ding or a little nick out of the exact same spot. And he says, Mom, did Sean O'Connell take a picture of your piano? And she was like, well, no, I took the picture with his camera. And he's like, he was here? And his mom's like, yeah, I told you about it in the grocery store a couple weeks ago, but you must have zoned out. Like,
Mhm.
so that was another Walter Mitty moment. Either way, his mom is able to give him enough clues to figure out where he thinks he's going to be, and he decides to go. And he goes to like the mountainous regions of Afghanistan to shoot snow leopards. And so he finds these Sherpas, and we see little bits written into his travel journal about where he's been and where he's going and how he's
Mhm.
feeling and what's happening. And he's climbing these mountains in the Himalayas, and he finally comes across Sean, and Sean's like, what are you doing here?
He's like, hello.
Pretty much. She's like, I'm trying to work. Can you be quiet, please? Because he's trying to take a picture of the snow leopards. And Walter's like, dude, I can't find -25, and you
He's like
told me
in
that was
the
the one.
mountains.
He's in
Like
the
in the
mountain. He's
mountains
like,
in the
I
middle of
tracked you
nowhere.
down. Like, we've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. It was very like, and Sean is like, you're sitting on it. I put it in the wallet. Remember the wallet that I sent you? And he's like, I threw it away.
Mhm.
Sean's like, well, now I know how you feel about me. Like, it was kind of a really, I don't know, kind of a funny moment. Like, they just kind of talked for a few minutes, and then they moved into like very Sean. Honestly, this is a very Sean Penn role. It was kind of perfect, and it moves into this like traveled, wise traveler type situation.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, Walter Mitty's, playing soccer with some Afghani kids out in a field and like okay with the fact that he threw away the negative and it doesn't matter. He just had this great adventure and he just is okay with life at this point. And so he flies home. And when he gets home, he has to tell his mom, I lost my job and, I can't find, the negative. And then so they end up selling the piano because his mom's going to need the money. And they're at the piano store selling the piano, this old antique piano, and the guy gives him a check and he tells his mom that basically she's like, put it in your wallet. And he's like, I don't have a wallet. And she's like, oh, I pulled this one out of the trash for you. I always saved your trinkets. And he was like, holy crap. Like pulls out the little tiny envelope with the one negative in it. And then he goes back down to Life magazine and kind of throws it in Adam Scott's face and is like, you don't have to be a jerk just because you can. And there's a beautiful speech that I'm not prepared to tell you because I didn't write it down.
He was like something about like put that on your plaque
But
on your
that's
desk
your
or
next
something.
job or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's on a plaque in Severance. Somebody go watch Severance and see if it's there.
I have seen Severance.
Is it there? I keep
No.
meaning to watch it. It's on my list. Anyway, so he doesn't even bother to look at the picture and he gets his stuff and leaves. Flash forward a few days later, Walter Mitty is going to pick up like his severance package from the magazine, and he goes into the I guess payroll or HR or whatever, and he says, Walter Mitty, and they hand him his envelope, and he starts to walk out, and he sees Cheryl Kristen Wiig from the back of her head, and instantly I was like, oh, he recognizes the back of her head, just like another book we read,
Yeah.
Farm Girl.
The first line.
Yep.
It was a little creepy, but anyways. So he kind of like walks a little faster and he's like, hey, Cheryl. And, she stops and they kind of talk for a minute. And she said, did you ever find it? Did you, and he was like, yeah, she's like, well, what was it? And he's like, I didn't even look. And she was like, well, it was published this morning or released this morning. We should go look and see if it's, what it was. And they go find the final copy and it says, something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, the, final edition dedicated to all the people who made life worth living or something along those lines. And it's a picture of Walter Mitty underneath the big marquee on the building of the Life magazine building, but he's just sitting on a stone bench looking at a negative sheet. It was a really beautiful photo.
Mhm.
And it was just kind of full circle moment that
I love that because the whole time I was like, "What is it? What is it?" I think it was like to the
exactly.
people who made it or something
Yeah.
like that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." I honestly had no idea what to expect,
I
what it
kind
was
of
gonna
remembered, but
be.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
And so it was just one of those moments that it was like, "Aw."
I know. That's how yeah, that was kinda my reaction
It
as
was
well.
really perfect, and that is why this movie, in my mind, gets a 5. Like,
Yeah,
if I rated everything individually, this movie gets a 5.
I gave the movie itself a 4.5 because it did feel a little. I usually don't like a self-discovery kind of movie type thing. That's usually not what I gravitate towards, but I really like this. It just felt a little too long, just a tiny bit too long for me.
That's fair. Lindsay, how do you feel about the movie in general? Just the last movie.
I give it a 4.
Okay.
I liked it.
So let me tell you my thoughts on the movie overall, because they made me cry. So I want to make you cry too, maybe. So the whole idea behind the movie is that here's this Walter, and honestly, both movies and kind of the book, is that here's this dude who's your everyman average Joe who has all these grand ideas, these grand fantasies, these grand plans, but never acts on them. And we see in the 1947 movie, he's forced into action by circumstances and a woman who won't leave him alone. And in the 2013 movie, we see that Walter is he's definitely not forced into anything, but he is pushed a little by Kristen Wiig to be brave and be courageous. And that reminds me of us, who had all these grand plans of making a podcast and all these ideas and thoughts and fantasies of what it could be like. And one day we just took that brave step. So, ground control to based on a book. Here we are.
Oh, wow, that's so cute.
So, here we are. Definitely Mitty no longer. That's
Nope.
us.
I know.
But
We
that
used to
does,
talk about it all the time, and now
we,
look at us.
right? We talked about it for forever. And it's sooner or later we had to do it, right?
Who would have thought?
So
Not
that
me.
no, not me either, honestly. Here we are, what, 35, 40 episodes somewhere along the way. I don't know where
Yep.
we are.
Yep, like 37, I think, at this point.
We're in it. We're
Yeah,
in it.
we're so in it.
And it's been almost a year since we first had that first meeting where we were like, okay, do we really want to do this? Yeah, let's do it. Here we
Yeah.
are. But that does bring me to the question of the episode, which is, when you find yourself daydreaming or zoning out, where do you go? For instance, I am usually mentally rearranging furniture or decorating a new house or designing a garden for a house that I saw on Zillow and fell in love with but can't afford.
We love our Zillow
we,
houses.
we really do. We really do. I try to look at the ones that are more within my own budget, but I don't have a very big budget and those houses are boring, so
That's no fun.
it's no fun.
Yeah.
So I have some grand plans. I'm gonna need this podcast to take off so I can get one of those houses, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
While we're fantasizing. Like,
Mine
sponsors,
usually
anyone?
mine usually depend on, like, what I'm obsessing over at the current moment. But usually I'm, like, fantasizing. I'm, like I said, I'm a big thrifter. I always, like, talk about thrifting all the time.
Mhm.
Especially I go, thrifting for, like, used books a lot. So, like, I'm always fantasizing about just finding, like, the craziest, like, best thing at, like, a used bookstore, like, something that I've been looking for so
Mhm.
long
A first
at.
edition or a
Yeah.
signed copy
Yeah,
or yeah.
something like that, especially if I know I'm going, like, I just did a book shopping trip recently. If I know I'm going soon, I'm, like, just picturing all the crazy cool things I could find, just dreaming about it. I do that a lot.
And then it's just 87 copies of Janet Ivanovich, One for the Money.
Yeah, 87 copies of, like, Nora Roberts.
Yep.
I'm like,
Yep.
"Damn it!"
But now you know to look for John Grisham titles at least. Like you didn't know before, but they're there. I promise you. That's what you learn at Based on the Book.
You learn something new.
Every day. What about you, Lindsay? Where do you go?
When I'm not making up fake scenarios or having fake conversations in my head, I daydream about quitting my job and becoming a writer.
Kind of
I
feel like
want that for you.
I want that for you. Hardcore. I don't, but I only if I also get to quit my job, because I don't think I can go to work without you.
I know. We all have to quit at the same time. We're like 5, 6, 7, 8. Quit.
Our poor boss. He's not gonna know what happened. He's gonna be like, what? No. Like 2 weeks notice. No. Not for all 3 of you. 6 weeks at minimum.
Like, see ya.
He'll quit too.
He would. He'd be like, and we're done.
Sometimes I'll be like daydreaming about arguments all the time.
I do that too.
Oh, I always replay a conversation in my head and have the best comebacks, but in the moment, like, no.
Yeah. I got like the head roll and everything, like as I'm going in.
Yes.
I'm
Every
by
time.
myself.
Yep.
Someone looks over, they're like, what in the hell is she doing?
Just replaying something that happened 3 weeks ago. Don't worry about it.
Mind your business, all right?
Pretty much. Oh, Lord. Well, I think that about does it, ladies. Thank you, listeners, for joining us on our adventure this week. Next week, we will be following along Percy Jackson and crew as Keri leads us through The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan, whose name I'm sure I just butchered. For our full schedule of episodes, check us out on our socials. We are available on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. We have tons of bonus content there, and we love to hear what you think, so be sure to follow along and say hello when you do. Until then, don't let your fantasies interrupt the adventures right in front of you. Bye!
Bye!